Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. Around here we talk all things books, TV, and of course, Big Brother. With BB27 right around the corner, I thought this was the perfect time to revisit some of my old favorites and count down my top 10 best Big Brother winners. This list is not just based on who won and when, but strategy, social game, the legacy they left on the game, as well as a little bit of their competition wins. So let me know in the comments, is your favorite on the list or did they end up getting snubbed? I will say that last year at the end of Big Brother 27, I did a tier ranking list of all of the winners, and based on this new rubric that I'm using and that opinion-based evaluation, these lists are completely and totally different, and it's so fun to see. So definitely let me know what your thoughts on this list are. Alright, let's chat about this rubric for just a minute before we really dive into everything. So each category is weighted and based on my own personal opinion of how important those factors truly are. So here's the list in order based on highest weightage to lowest weightage. It's strategy, social game, legacy on the game, jury management, and competition wins. So those are the measurements that I scored each player in, and then took the total overall score of each player, and that's how I got my top 10 list. And like I said, the list is kind of shocking. More so shocking about some of the people that aren't on the list. So definitely make sure you watch this video all the way through. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in to number 10. Okay, so number 10 is none other than Josh Martinez. This is going to be a hot take, I think, for a lot of people, because there's a lot of people that think that Josh was undeserving of his win and only won because the jury was bitter towards Paul. While that is somewhat accurate, Josh had a good read on the fact that this was going to be people that kind of would be bitter in the jury, and he used that to his advantage. And while Paul wouldn't take ownership of any of the kind of moves he was making, Josh did the opposite, and he really utilized his goodbye messages to tell the jury members what was going on in the game and how he was involved in those things. And so while some people might sit back and say he did nothing and just coasted to the end riding Paul's coattails, it's completely and totally false. And honestly, for me, going back and rewatching this season recently really changed my perception of Josh and how well of a game I think that he played, because I definitely used to be in those camp of people that thought he just rode Paul's coattails. He actually didn't even really like Paul that much towards endgame, jury and later, because he saw how nasty of a game Paul was playing, and he was like, but I don't really have any other allies, so I'm gonna ride with him until the end, you know. But he was not blinded by Paul's mist like everyone else was. He saw right through it, which I think just speaks even more to the hold he had on the game that a lot of people discredit him for. All right, moving on to number 9. We have someone that I think a lot of people tend to forget about, which is crazy because she is iconic and is very much deserving of being on this list. And I'm actually surprised that she didn't end up a little bit higher on my list. But we have none other than BB4's winner, June Song. She was the creator and inventor of a true strategic floating game. Not someone that just coasts by. I think we as a community really need to learn the difference between a floater and a coaster. A floater has some strategy involved, and that is exactly what June had. She knew that going into the end game, a lot of people didn't like her, but a lot of people also didn't like Allison, and she was one of them that didn't like Allison either. But in order to get those jury votes, she knew they were going to need to stick together, and that's exactly what she did, and they went to the final 2 together. June just really relied on being such a social player, and even though, like I said, there wasn't a lot of people that truly liked her, she was still able to utilize her social skills, her cooking skills, all of those kinds of things to really make an impact on people that they wanted to keep her in the game. So as I said, Her legacy, honestly, is probably what even lands her on the list because she is the creator of a phenomenal floater game. All right, coming in at number 8 is June's fellow floater, Andy Haron. A lot of people discredit Andy because of the season that he is associated with. I totally agree. But he really truly did have such a good floating game in BB15. There's a whole entire montage of everyone in the house talking about how they're Andy's number one at one point in the season. He had built such strong connections and relationships with every single person in that house. And if you really pay close attention to all of the top winners or top players, not just in Big Brother, but also in games like Survivor, you know that their mantra is that you shouldn't ever discount anyone. You should always make sure you have a relationship available with every single person. It's never too late to create a new alliance. It's never too late to build a new ally. And I think that that's what he really focused on throughout the whole game, is just building true, genuine connections with every single person in that house. It's not to say that he never got involved in any drama. He never, made his opinion known or anything like that. But at the end of the day, people still trusted him enough with their game to work with him and want to keep him safe. And that's what got him to the end. Number 7 on the list is one that I personally am shocked by, just because it's not my favorite winner to discuss and give credit to, because I'm very biased when it comes to this season. However, number 7 on the list is Ian Terry. And even though I have always said, and will still say to this day, that I think Dan deserved the win over Ian, I don't ever really want that to discredit the fact that I still think Ian deserved to be in the win, Ian deserved to be in the end, and that he is a good player. Ian had to overcome a lot of his own obstacles in the beginning of the game, and he did so phenomenally. And then he really had such a good social game with a select few people in the house. That was kind of where his downfall was, is that it wasn't the entirety of the house. It was just his own little group of people. But he also was able to win when it mattered. There was not a more important win for Ian than the double eviction win that he won the veto of. I remember it clear as day. It was this little shark puzzle maze thing. Dan had won the HOH. He was fully planning on taking Ian out, and Ian had a good read on that, and he knew he absolutely had to win that veto, and he did. I fully believe had he not won that veto, he never would have made it to the end. He would have been out that night immediately. No doubt, no question about it. He would have been gone. I think that that's what makes him such a good player, is that while he could have improved a little bit on having better connections with some other people in the house, I don't think Dan's funeral would have been as successful if Ian had stronger relationships with like Frank, Gin City, some of those like outlier people that weren't in the Quack Pack. Dan's funeral, he wouldn't have been able to interject himself with those people, because Dan did have not necessarily a great relationship with Frank. We are all aware of that, but he did have decent relationship with Gin City. And so being able to kind of play on that relationship using those social skills, he was able to kind of worm his way in with the funeral situation. Had Ian had stronger connections with them, I don't think it would have went down that way. And so that's why I say that's a weaker part of Ian's game, is he had really strong connections with the people he was working with, but he didn't really focus on building other connections outside of that group. Okay, moving on to number 6. It's a person that a lot of people don't like to give credit to for their game in this season, and I understand why. Because for me personally, all right, let's just get the name out of the way. It's Nicole Franzel. Here's the deal. Hear me out. I am not a fan of the way Nicole chooses to play this game. She is 100% a snake. I agree with that. I think that she honestly does herself a huge disservice by not just owning that and admitting that she can be a dirty player because she has been in both of her seasons. She's a rat snake, if that makes sense, because her game is to really try and get close to people and use information against them, which I am fine with. That's a messy game and I love to see it. But then you pair that with her always wanting to put on this like innocent victim mentality, small town girl, I don't know anything, I'm just here trying my best. Girl, just own up to it. Just own up to it. You would have so much more respect in this community if you just owned up to the way that you play the game. Like, you've played enough times at this point, and the pattern has been the same both times, that, like, there's really no denying it at this point. You know what I mean? So, I understand why a lot of people don't care for her. I am one of them, but I also know that in BB18, she played a phenomenal game. And there's no denying it. She won't own up to the style of game that she played, which is very disappointing, as I've already discussed. But it was a good strategical game that she played season 18. She had a very good read of everyone in that house. She had decent relationships with every person in that house. A lot of people trusted her, which ended up being their downfall. She was able to read the game well in advance, a couple weeks ahead. There's so many, like, okay, for example, I'll give you one of the move that she made towards the end of the game where I said that needs to be the winner was, if you recall that season, one of the twists at the end game, which was actually one of my favorite twists they've ever done, was the care packages. And there was 1 week that Michelle, who despised Nicole, she won the co-HOH care package. And Nicole was able to rat out some information to share with Natalie and Michelle, because Natalie won the actual competition and Michelle won the care package, so they were HOH together. And Nicole was able to snake her way to giving them information that made them target other people rather than Nicole. Nicole didn't even see the block that week. Like, come on. Those are the kind of moves that are like, yeah, that's wild. The person that has been gunning after her for weeks doesn't even nominate her. And it's because of information that she herself shared. It wasn't like someone else from another group came and said something to Michelle and Natalie and it made them change their mind. Like, no, Nicole did that. She's the one that took them the information. So, like, she played a good game. She played a good game. She won't own up to it. She'll own up to say that she, like, played a good game. She won't own up and say that it's like a rat snake game. But it is. That is what it is. And, hey, maybe if she owned up to it, she'd be higher on the list. But she's not. We've officially made it to our top 5. And honestly, I think this is where things got a little bit more surprising for me. To be honest, number 5 and number 4 were very, very closely in their overall score. And I think that truly the reason that number 4 landed in number 4 is because not enough people put respect on number 5's name. And I used to be one of them. I recently rewatched this season and it made me see things in a completely different light. So let's dive into it. Number 5 on the list is none other than Hayden Moss of Big Brother 12. Now, anytime I have ever went back and thought about Big Brother 12, I never discredited Hayden, saying that I didn't think he deserved to win, but I always remembered it as like just comp beast. Like, I always remembered this being a season where it was just like a bunch of dudes that won a bunch of comps and that's how they won the game. And that's not true. It's really not true. Hayden wins the very first HOH and then he doesn't win another HOH for like pretty far into the season. And then Matt won like a couple HOHs towards the beginning of the game, but then they got rid of him. So like the brigade wasn't even really winning HOHs until the end of the game. What they did was obviously their master strategy of having like all of them and then one partner on the outside. We all know that part. But on top of that, what they were able to do is they saw how everyone was against Rachel and Brendan, and Rachel and Brendan was against anyone that was against them. And they just continued to stoke those flames between Rachel and Brendan and everyone outside of the brigade. And then the brigade just played both sides. They made sure they had a couple people that were tight with Rachel and Brendan, and they had a couple people that were tight with other people that are over on this outside realm of people. That way, these two groups of people, Rachel and Brendan and everyone else, never grouped up against them. That's a part of the game that a lot of people don't really talk about, and Hayden was a big part of that. Like, everyone talks about how Enzo created it, which is questionable. Maddie was the brains because he came up with the strategy of the one person outside of the alliance, sure. But Matt got voted out pretty early on in the game, and then Hayden was the strategist out of the 3 brigade members that were left. And I just never remembered it that way. But then watching it back, I'm like, yeah, this makes a lot of sense. And he actually deserves way more respect for his win than what he's ever been given. He's definitely deserving of a top 5 winner spot. Number 4, it pains me to say it. It pains me to say it, but I have to give credit where credit is due, unfortunately. Number 4 is Derek Levasser, the ruiner of the game as we know it in New Era. Hopefully we're making a turn. Last season was much different, and I do know from interviewing Kenny on the Girl Gab podcast that they did not show them season 16 in Sequester last season, which is a big change because previously it was like you had to watch season 16. So hopefully they keep that same energy for the BB27 cast, and maybe we'll continue to have a messy season. That's what I'm hoping for. But anyways, BB16 winner Derek Levasser, it has to be, I mean, he played a good game. Was it boring to watch? Yes. Has everyone that has tried to emulate his game since then also been boring to watch? Yes. But at the end of the day, he changed the game. He left a legacy on the game. He had such a handle on every single person in that house. From beginning to end, he orchestrated every single eviction. I mean, it was a great game. There's no denying that it was a great game. It truly was. So there you go. You're number 4 on my list. Number 3 on the list is actually our most recent winner. And I do know that some people are probably going to come at me and say that this is some recency bias coming in. We'll check back in a couple years and see. We'll check back with each other, okay? Because I don't think so. I think that Chelsea really did play a phenomenal game last year. I think that the point in the season where I was like, oh, she's one to watch was not only for week one. Okay, week 1, she got that, what they call it, a downgrade or something like that, where she wasn't able to compete or anything. And you saw her in the diary room be like, okay, this isn't just a week to chill for me. Like, it's not just, I don't get to compete, so like, I'm just coasting for a week. She was like, I have to make connections with people. I have to use my social skills to survive, because they weren't immune. They were just in a really bad spot. And while the house had agreed to not target her or Cedric, people can change their mind halfway through the week. And if you're not utilizing your social skills to ensure that they don't, meh. But so I knew from that point that she was decent. I was like, okay, yeah, good points. Way to be thinking about it, way to be self-aware. But the moment that really got me, where I was like, oh, she's one to watch for all of this, to take it all, was the week that her and Brooklyn were on the block together. Chelsea completely pivoted her whole entire game because Brooklyn was her number 1 ally, and obviously it was like sink or swim at that point. And she was swimming circles because She, like I said, she pivoted her whole game. She was able to create new and even stronger relationships with people in the house. And that is what coasted her to that's what carried her to the end of the game. On top of that, she won comp wins. She made good moves whenever she needed to. She was able to really convince other people to make moves that were more beneficial to her than it was to them. Mainly Mackenzie, but there was also some times with Leah that she was able to do that as well. Um, Also even some of T-Core's voting decisions and things of that nature. Like she was able to get people to make some moves that benefited her more than they would have benefited them. And so I really think that she played a phenomenal game last season, and people can say it's recency bias all they want, but if you really sit there and watch her game beginning to end, is it recency bias or did she just play really well? Number 2 on the list is Xavier. Honestly, couldn't believe he was this high, because I really do think that Xavier's win was a collective cookout win. But at the end of the day, I really do think that him and Tiffany both were leaders of that alliance. I think that Tiffany very much was the person that came up with all of the strategy, kind of came up with their game plans, but then Xavier was the one that really had the lead to ensure that they were able to execute those plans. Because, there was a little bit of drama and infighting inside the alliance sometimes, and Xavier was always able to kind of ground everyone, remind them of why they were doing what they were doing and why they needed to stick to the plan that Tiffany had created. So while I think that Tiffany definitely deserves her flowers, and I always wish that she would have made it further than she did in the season, I also don't want to completely discredit the role that Xavier also had in his own win. I think that Xavier himself would give a lot of credit to different members of the cookout for getting him to the end. But at the end of the day, he always had really strong relationships with a lot of people in the house. Like I said, he helped keep that whole alliance very grounded and focused on their mission at hand. And he won competitions whenever he needed to. He remained calm in a lot of different heated situations to be able to keep other people around him grounded. I just think that while I 110% agree that Tiffany was the strategist of the cookout, Xavier still played a really good game. Okay, and if you know me, this number 1 is not going to be a shock even in the slightest, but it is none other than Dan Giesling. And yes, I did only base this on season 10. This does not have season 14 in it at all. But he was the very first person to win by a unanimous vote. There have been other people since then that have won unanimously, but he was the first to ever do it 10 seasons in. He was able to create a lot of chaos in the house and then sit back and kind of disappear and turn that target onto other people. He won when he only needed to. He was very laser focused on jury management in season 10. There was even a point where he chose Michelle to go on a reward with him because she was in the jury and he knew he had kind of wronged her a little bit. So he's like, let me right this mistake right now. She is someone that would be really appreciative of going on this trip. And I think it would kind of change her tune a little bit. Would kind of take away that sour taste that I left in her mouth on the way out the door. He just had a really good read on the game and everyone in the house. I wouldn't say he had necessarily good relationships with every single person in the house at every single point. However, this goes back to what I said earlier in the video. It was never too late for him to make an ally out of someone. It didn't matter how much him and Jerry sat there and yelled at each other. If he needed to use Jerry, He would work with him for, even if it's a short amount of time. You really kind of saw that with his game in season 10. The only long-term alliance he had was the one that he had with Memphis. Everyone else was kind of just like short-term working together situations while he needed to. And then he would move on to the next person. Sometimes that's what you have to do to win these games, and he knew that. I just think that while season 14 is what Dan is known for because of Dan's funeral, season 10 was an almost perfectly executed game. It really truly was. And you can argue with the wall if you disagree. Okay, so let me know in the comments what you thought of this top 10 list. Like I said, there are some names that I'm really shocked didn't make the cut. If you've been a BB fan for quite some time, you can probably guess who those people are. One in particular. But hey, the score is what the score is. No arguing with the numbers. Let me know in the comments if I got it right or completely missed the mark on some of these people. Would love to hear who your top 3 winners are down in the comments. Let's continue this conversation while we get hyped up for this upcoming season of Big Brother. And if you enjoy Big Brother content, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button. I will have weekly recaps, live feed recaps, coverage, everything that you're going to need to know all there is to know about Big Brother 27 preseason and during the season. So make sure you join this community that I'm trying to build here for this upcoming season. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.